Well, welcome to the Business and Ethics Conference podcast. Today's date's May 14th. It is actually the day before we would have had our Business and Ethics Conference this year. So it's a little disappointing to us, but I'm glad we're able to present this podcast in lieu of the fact that we can't get together in person. And today I have with me Randy Redwitz, who's the co-chair of the event, along with myself. And we have with us as a guest, Dan Walker, who's the CEO and chairman of Farmers and Merchant Bank. And Farmers and Merchant Bank for many, many years has been the sponsor of the Lifetime Achievement Award for the Business and Ethics Conference. And we're very grateful for their support. They've been phenomenal, not just in that, but in other areas of the diocese, donating their time and money to help support various ministries of the church, and we thank them for that. They're great community sponsors, not just for Catholics, but for all the people here in Orange County. So we're very thrilled to have the CEO and chairman, and 26 years, right, Dan? Something like that you've been in charge?
That would be very true. It really was 2002 when I took the place over from my father.
Oh, okay.
Who was the third generation CEO.
Amazing.
So I'm the fourth generation here as we started the business in 1907.
Wow.
Yes, I know. That's really something, 113 years in business. And the point I wanted to make about that is they are still in business. I remember in 2008, well, actually, we could go back to the 90s as far as I can remember, where banks were going down in droves. And then again in 2008, many long-term banks. And so it's really a credit and testament to the management of Farmers and Merchant to be 113 years old here in Southern California. You've seen over that many years, you've seen the Great Depression and many recessions and what we call the Great Recession of 2008. And here we are now. I don't know what we're going to call 2020 other than the pandemic of 2020. And so I'd like to start off with, I know you were very busy because you've helped out the church and one of my holding companies as well with the PPP, Paycheck Protection Plan. And I'm just wondering now, are you done? Are you through all those loans? And what do you look at when you were looking at them, the ethics in accepting the stimulus package? So it's a twofold question. I'm just curious how busy you are with that right now, or if it's over, you funded all the money you have, and what the ethics have been. And I'll just give a quick example. For example, a construction company that's business hasn't been affected in any way, shape, or form. In fact, may have increased for whatever reason during this period of time. And then they're taking that money and getting basically 2.5 months of their salaries and rent paid for, when in fact the revenues have remained the same or stronger. Has that been a challenge or issue in those hundreds or thousands of applications you've gotten over the last month?
Actually, Rand, it's a very interesting time, and the responsibility of utilization of the funds is in the entire hands of the customer themselves. If we knew of actual abuse or of actual concern, then we on occasion did decline the opportunity to go ahead and loan those funds to that individual company. I think that when the individual is financially sound, they have a lot of cash on hand, not just working every day, but a lot of cash on hand to cover their payrolls, that we would go ahead and maybe suggest a declination or do a declination. I'll tell you that the payroll protection plan was a great stimulus for us to show how farmers and merchants could serve the communities that we're located in. We actually advanced on 4,000 different credits across all of our Orange County, Los Angeles, Santa Barbara communities, equal to over $700 million.
Wow.
And if you think about $700 million, lending it to these communities to do payroll, if you equalize that into the number of individuals actually served, thousands of individuals were served inside our communities. And that's the focus of where we were paying attention to what's going on. The lending side of that business is just one side. Now we have the collection side, and we're also responsible for proving out each of these loans that they did go exactly for payroll. So in 8 weeks from now, we'll be back with each of the companies. We will be asking them for proof of how they use the dollars so that we can go ahead and have those loans paid off through the SBA gift back, if you wish to say. And that will fulfill the responsibility for the bank, for the community, for the SBA department.
So just quickly, how many applications or loans did you approve? Just number-wise, what would that be?
We approved 4,006 applications. Not sure that there was much more than a handful that we actually turned down.
Wow.
I'd like to say further, though, that in the first round, we had 2,856 applications. We funded 2,500,
Wow.
which was 100% of all the applications that had qualified. The 350 applications that were left aside, we went back to those individuals and got them all qualified in the second round. And then we added on to that another 12. So that's how we got up to that 4,000 individual companies. I'll tell you something else that's really quite nice about the stories that go along with this. I'll give you just a couple. The first story was the loan that I made for $847.
Oh,
well, that was to me, wasn't it?
That all you
I think it was to your wife.
That's all I qualified for.
I think that was to your wife, Rand. You were the employee, of course. And so 2 months of salary, $847, that covered your day. So that's a very interesting credit. Another credit was when I called this one individual for the loan was for $46,000. I called them and said, "We have your loan approved by the SBA. We'll be funding it here in the next 5 days." And this was a reaction that we received as we signed documents or as we went through DocuSign. Tears, relief, comments of, "You just saved my family's business.
Wow.
You just saved the business and you've allowed me to keep people employed." This was the overall comments that were taking place over and over and over again as we were signing these individuals up on these loans.
Well, Randy's got a question for you, but I just want to make a comment. We talk a lot about the first line heroes from a medical standpoint, which of course is very important in understanding.
True.
But you are one of the first line heroes of the economic side of this catastrophe that's going on in the United States. I mean, I could just feel it in your heart just talking about these individuals and these loans and how important it is to saving. And who knows, I mean, that could be a business that's been in the family for 30 or 40 years. And in 2 months, it's gone without the help of you and the other banks. And of course, the taxpayers for helping fund this. None of this could happen. So, and what's very interesting is your leadership for your bank, and the reason why you've been around 113 years is, you're on the phone talking to these people. You're showing the way for your bank, and we really appreciate that. Randy's got a question for you now, I think.
Yeah, it's very true, Rand. Multi-generational companies were helped, and I received emails from these individuals. That's for sure. But I'll tell you that from the farmers and merchants side, the credit really goes to the working staff. We had 140 people dedicated to this project. They were coming to work at 8 o'clock and going home at 10 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
Wow.
And were showing up the next day at 8 o'clock. Many of those individuals were working as much as 7 days a week. I think they were just trying to get out of home and not have to stay at home.
Yeah.
That could very well be.
And they got paid at the same time. What a great deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
But you know, it's really
it's commitment.
very newsworthy, but yet I haven't heard anything about this in the news of how hard the banks work to get this money out so quickly, because it was vital. I mean, I'm on the front lines in terms of with the tenants that need the money, because I'm in the commercial real estate business, and it's vital for them as well to receive that money to ensure that their employees stay employed and that they pay the rent. So it's a trickle down. We're all affected by the work you do. So.
Thank you, Ran.
You know, Dan, to sort of flip out of the PPP program and look at a larger perspective here, what is the bank and yourself, how do you view economic recovery here from this horrible hole that we're in financially right now?
Randy, who knows exactly what the answer is to that question?
For sure.
But I feel that as we start to come back from the virus itself, survive the second wave of the virus itself, truly the recovery is going to be promoted by the vaccine. And as the vaccine comes about, you're going to have immediate confidence of our public to start living in the same manner that they were before. They will visit the restaurants, go to the movies, back to the baseball, the Honda Center, and so forth here in Orange County. And I think that from that standpoint, that these are the key factors that need to take place in order to focus on it. I've advised my staff, and I'll tell you, Farmers and Merchants never changed our hours. We stayed open from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and on Saturday, I can tell you that 96% of our employees report to work every day. But yet I've got 300 of my 800 employees working out at home. So I've put a lot of folks out at home, and I've safeguarded us from being affected by the flu or the virus if it got a hold of us. So we've been very blessed as a corporation with our employees' ability to work. But I think that it's going to be a long time. There's going to be it's going to be stimulus by some companies getting back to work right away. The restaurants getting back alive, doing more than the takeout than what they're doing, and then the retail side. But I'm intimidated, Randy, with the rise of the second virus, so to speak, coming about. And you know it's going to come at Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah. Well, you know,
the online portion of our lives is going to really take over this year.
It will indeed. Yes.
If there's any money to buy the gifts with, and then let's hope that they have the vaccine in place so that we can start to enjoy ourselves more. I
feel that these PPP loans, although they're measured over an 8-week period after funding, their use and their value might be 4 months, 6 months down the road, as opposed to within that 8 weeks. So it's the full effect of this pandemic has yet to really be felt, I think.
Well, when you look at the fact that, you know, you mentioned the retail season coming, the Christmas season, which oftentimes makes it or breaks it for many companies. You also have the summer season that I think right now looks pretty predictable in that we're not going to really have one. And a lot of money in the hospitality world and the tourism, and it hasn't hit us yet. So yeah, it does seem like it's going to be. It's hard to believe, you know, next year at this time things will be humming. You're right, Dan. I think it's going to be 12 to 24 months before we see any kind of recovery. And I did hear Donald Trump say this morning, the president, that he feels there will be a vaccine by the end of the year. And what was more important than saying that, is that the rollout will be almost instant because of the fact that they need to get it out to the public, which I kind of wonder about that, but that's what he said this morning, is he really wants to get it out the minute we have something that's working, wants to get it out to the public and roll it out. So, because that's true, the vaccine will be the only real thing that we can take to the bank, so to speak, on getting this economy back going. So, Dan, you mentioned, by the way, your employees. And I'm just kind of wondering, in terms of how do you deal with the ethics of your employees, typically during the pandemic? I mean, are people abusing it, saying I feel uncomfortable coming in, or I'm going to take the unemployment check, and they're skirting their duties or goofing off, or what are you experiencing there with your employees and during this particular time?
Here I have 800 employees, Rand. 20 were absent today. So that took the highest percentage, just 20.
Oh, 20, okay, didn't quite hear
And
that.
20 were absent from a standpoint of they didn't feel well enough or confident enough to come in. I do have some employees that are scared to come in and be in this environment. If they are, then we just put them on leave, and we wait until it turns around and they can start back. Some of them are scared to come in because they live with senior citizens and they don't want to carry home the asymptomatic, so to speak, illness to their parents, grandparents. So they're being responsible to their own family, and we encourage them to do so. We have had, all of our employees have just been encouraged to push forward and be a part of the solution, not be any one degree of the problem at all. I have one branch in the Memorial Hospital, and I remember back in March, they as a group at that branch wanted to close the office and go work at some other office or just go home. They were so intimidated. I made a personal visit out to them. I thanked them for their commitment to stay at work at any of our offices, and that we're contacting the regulators to see if we could actually close the office. Within 3 days, they all called me back and they said, please keep the office open. We want to report to work here.
Wow.
That was the response, because as an employer, we went to them and appreciated their concerns. And when we did that, and I do that all across all of my offices and departments, that we have to accommodate daycare. We have to figure out how to buy 150 computers so that I can have people work at home, take care of their kids, do the things that they have to do in order to be productive here for the bank. That's what it is. Unfortunately, they didn't realize they were on call 24 hours a day. That's the other side of the coin as well.
Well, it sounds like you and the executive team are very respectful of your employees, and in turn, they're respectful to your wishes as well. And I know Randy and I talked about this at the previous podcast, and I think we as well feel that our employees are doing the right thing for their families, and in turn, doing the best they can for us as well, as we both have essential businesses that have to stay open. And we're absolutely, certainly in my firm, we get it. And if they want to stay home, and honestly, until there's a vaccine, I'm comfortable through the end of the year at this point, keeping it the way it is. So voluntarily having them come to work or working out of their home. Some claim they're more effective, and some probably are at home. But you got, as you mentioned, the fact of senior parents perhaps you're living with as an employee, and childcare, especially as school is out right now. So that it's working out for everyone. So that's great to hear.
Yeah,
We've
have to.
taken a very similar approach, Rand, that having our staff work at home through the end of the year and maybe into next year,
Yeah.
not a concern for us at all.
That's
I
great.
think as employers, we have to walk a very fine line of being trying to run our businesses efficiently, but at the same time being extraordinarily considerate to people's feelings and desires and concerns, as you outlined there, Dan. It's you just have to be very, very attentive to those and not force anybody into a bad or uncomfortable circumstance for themselves. God forbid somebody would get sick after that. You know, it'd be the worst.
God forbid.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that we live in very dark times right now, and we have to make some choices. Sometimes the choice is easy, and when it is easy, we have to examine it and make sure that we do the right thing first.
Right.
Doing the right thing, having them work from home, having them take care of their kids or their parents, and being responsible to the family is a very important value to farmers and merchants.
Sure.
I think that if we don't have the loyalty to our employees, and when you talk about ethics and loyalty, if you don't have the loyalty to your employees, then you can't expect it in return.
Right.
And when they're in their time of need, then you have to be able to sometimes write a check. Sometimes you have to make extra pay. Sometimes you have to be willing to focus on a different aspect than what's normal. And be responsible. These are the ethical sides of what all three of us do every day.
Yeah.
It's
You know,
kind of
as a follow-on to that subject matter, and I have to tell you, my experience with farmers and merchants has just been so exceptionally great. And you know, I managed all the cathedral renovation funds and interfaced with your people on a very constant basis. And boy, they were just shining examples of really beautiful behavior. But what do you do? What do you do in a situation where you find unethical behavior? How do you deal with it within your organization? And is it addressed just by personnel? Do you take a personal responsibility for it or in it in the process of counseling that individual? What's how is it dealt with?
I can tell you, Randy, that unethical situations of our customers or of our employees is not tolerated at all.
Yeah.
It is a very deep line in the sand for us. I was told by my grandfather, he can have patience for a lot of things, but if you lied to me, that was the end of the day. I can tell him a lot of disasters, or a lot of times that I did the wrong thing, or I lost money today, or I made a bad loan today. But to allow for any type of misinformation, or as we said, a lie, that was not acceptable whatsoever.
Sure.
So that's how the culture of the corporation is raised.
That's fantastic. Well, I've seen it in action, so it's very impressive.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys have been very very good to the church and to the cathedral. In fact, I believe it was a year or two ago that you gave us $1 million donation at one of the business and ethics conferences.
That's right.
That's
It
right.
was just, I could hear the gasp in the audience because that was one of our larger donations for the entire fundraising of the cathedral. So we really, really appreciate that.
Well,
And
thank you very much.
it's been great talking to you. We've really enjoyed it. I'm sure Randy has too. And so we want to thank you for coming on and sharing your thoughts and your challenges and the rewards you've gotten over the last couple months and being involved in something that no one has ever experienced in our country or globally ever. A complete shutdown, when you think of it, almost globally. I mean, it reads like a novel. It's just amazing. So I do want to remind the people listening that we will have the 2021 Business and Ethics Conference. It will be April 14th at the Irvine Hotel here in Irvine. And we're looking forward to it. It's all set up and ready to go, God willing. We will see all of you there. And again, Dan, thank you for being here today and being our guest.
Thank
Dan,
you for
thank you so
receiving.
much. Dan,
Thank you,
so much.
Randy. Thank you, Rand. Appreciate the opportunity to share good information.
Good.
We love
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Have a blessed day.
You too.
Bye. You too.
Bye.